We've been talking a lot about IRMAA, income-related monthly adjustment amounts, the surcharges that are there for your Medicare premiums, and it is a hot topic right now. We just mentioned that there's a letter that you do not want to get once you retire, and it's an IRMAA letter from the federal government. And if you're listening right now and you're like, well, what in the world is IRMAA? I don't even know what you're talking about. Paul, let me give you a couple of minutes as being an IRMAA expert. Talk to our listeners about what IRMAA is and why this is important regarding retirement planning.
Yeah, so what IRMAA stands for is income-related monthly adjustment amounts. So to really break it down in English is if you make too much taxable income going into retirement, not according to you, but according to the federal government, the IRS, you run the risk of losing 60 to 100% of your Social Security net benefit, not your gross net. Remember, this is a game of net income, not gross income in retirement. By the time when you're in your mid 70s or early 80s, when you need your Social Security net income the most.
Yes.
That's the definition of IRMAA.
And let's talk about that for a minute. You know, a lot of people, they don't realize until they turn age 65 that normally, not always, but normally there are two simultaneous events that happen at the same time. They'll trigger their Social Security as they retire. And if that happens, of course, all kinds of things are happening. Their traditional health insurance is stopping from their work, from their place of work. They go on to Medicare. Their income stops and it changes to Social Security benefits and a combination of either a pension or a tax-deferred retirement plan. Sometimes, and for a lot of people in this country, it is just Social Security. That's all they've got. And there's a gross payment amount and there's a net payment amount. And this is what people don't realize until they get to the situation. They turn 65, they go on to Medicare, they trigger Social Security, or maybe they were already on because you could start at age 62. And then you get this gross number and this net number. Well, the net number, of course, is often based on the result of the Medicare Part B premium being deducted from your Social Security payments. That's not how you have to pay for it, but most people choose to do that. So whenever I'm doing income planning with someone and I'll say, what's your Social Security benefit? And they'll say, oh, you mean gross or net? Well, let's do both. I want to know both of them. What's your gross? What's your net? Because I may discover a problem there whenever we look at that. Well, here's going to be an example. Let's jump right in where it goes next to nothing and then some. Better start paying attention to your modified adjusted gross income in year 63 for the rest of your life. At 63, it determines your IRMAA premium at 65. At 64, it determines 66. So it's always a 2-year look back. Well, here's an example. This is a letter that a client of ours got that they received in the mail from the Social Security Administration. And this is what it says. What you should know. Based on the information we have, we cannot pay benefits to you beginning January 2025. Your monthly medical insurance premium is $259. The monthly benefit that you should get is less than your medical insurance premiums. We are stopping your monthly benefits starting January 2025 to pay for part of this premium. After adjusting for your monthly benefits, we find that we must bill you for $477.40. And so now here's what happens. You have a retired teacher. They have a great pension. Not all of us have pensions, but they have a great pension. That means their Social Security benefit's really small. It was like $250 a year, or $250 a month, sorry. But here's what happened, the perfect storm. At age 63, their spouse died. Now, they had no clue what was coming at 65, but at age 63, their spouse died. Guess what? That spouse was a business owner, had business real estate. What do you do when a spouse dies and they own a business? You sell it. So they sold that business and they sold that real estate. And now you have the loss of a spouse. You have the loss of their income. You have the loss of their Social Security check because you're a teacher. You're living on a very reduced benefit. And then you get a letter from the Social Security Administration that says, hey, by the way, your benefit's not enough to pay your premium. We're going to take all your benefit and you're going to write us a check for $477.70 for the next 12 months. That is a massive retirement income problem. What in the world, Paul? Let's talk about this for a minute. How often do you see these type of things happen?
So one of the worst stories we see in IRMAA is the surviving spouse. Let me tell you why. And usually it's the wife because, she had a joint income with her husband throughout all those years. So now he passes away and that joint income becomes obviously a single filer income, which potentially could push her into a much higher IRMAA bracket because that's much greater income now transitioned into a single filer income. The second thing I want to say is that if a baby boomer spouse becomes a widow, there's a 70% chance that advisor is going to get fired.
70% chance they're going somewhere else.
They're going somewhere else because they were
Yeah.
not paid attention to.
Yeah.
And so now the wife inherits the husband's primary benefit because the spousal goes away, and that's going to get eaten up in IRMAA because it's going to be in a higher IRMAA bracket. And another thing that I'm seeing too is that let's say she gets to mid-70s and early 80s. We're already seeing this. So the first baby boomer retired in 2006. Most people don't know that. And now that first baby boomer that retired in 06 is now in their 80s. They're 84, 83, 84, right? So now they're going to be at some point needing some kind of long-term care, extended care costs, right? And the very dark word in our world is called self-fund. Self-fund. What's that mean? They don't have long-term care insurance, right? They don't have that. So they're going to be basically
Pulling it out of their assets from somewhere.
Yeah. And so that income is going to go on a 1040, and that's going to push them potentially into a higher IRMAA bracket. It's that simple. And that's a chunk of change.
And we already know this, Paul, the majority of the people, where do they have that money saved that they're going to pull for their self-funding? It's not sitting in a non-qualified cash account at the bank and checking. It's in a 401k or a 403b or a TSP or an IRA. It's in some form of tax-deferred savings vehicle. But guess what? When you have a need and that long-term care comes, there's a stroke, there's a heart attack, there's cancer, something happens, you're pulling that money from one of those self-funded accounts. And if, guess what, in the Ozarks where I'm at, Paul, I don't know about where you're at, it's $100,000 a year for round-the-clock care. If it's nonstop 24/7, it's $120,000. But if you're just in standard care, it's about $98,000 to $100,000 a year. Pull $100,000 a year out of an IRA and combine that to your pension payments and combine that to your Social Security payments, and you have a massive IRMAA problem.